Yes, I'm Tyrell Gittens. I am the coordinator and editor of the Cropper Foundation's Cari-Bois Environmental News Network, and I welcome you this afternoon to our fifth State of the Environment webinar, which is part of two webinar series that we currently have ongoing. They both would have started last year in April. This one, the State of the Environment series, tend to focus a lot on, general environmental issues from different perspective. And then we have the climate specific climate breakdown webinar series, which also happens, um, a few weeks sometimes in the vicinity of this webinar. So you all could look forward at the end of this webinar for more information about that one. For everyone that would have signed their carnival contracts recently, and, put in all the hard work because it's in our DNA, I hope that you are well rested and, back to full functioning. For those who may not be from Trinidad and haven't signed their contracts as yet, I know carnivals are coming up very soon and different festivals. So I hope that this discussion that we have this afternoon would really, provide some insight on how we can make these festivals more sustainable. But I know y'all didn't really come to hear me talk a lot this afternoon, so I'm gonna pass you all over to our lovely lineup of presenters this afternoon, with the first being Cherise Berkeley. So Cherise Lauren Berkeley is an activist, artist, and mask maker who proudly hails from Belmont, Trinidad, and has actively been involved in the art of carnival since birth. In crafting traditional mask characters for the Berkeley Carnival Revolution band, Cherise prioritizes the use of sustainable and recycled materials for environmental consciousness. At the core of Cherise's mask making lies a commitment to inclusivity and embracing the diversity of masqueraders. By fostering an environment that celebrates individuality and promotes acceptance, Teresa's ban extends beyond carnival revelry and also seeks to address critical issues affecting minority groups, including LGBTQI plus rights, mental health, disabilities, children's rights, and domestic violence protection. For Cherise, art and creativity serves as not only a personal passion, but also integral tools for social change. So I will now pass the floor to Cherise. And just one small note, we will have some time after the presentations for Q&A session. So please feel free to hold your questions until then. And just to prevent any technical issues, if you could turn off your videos and your mics during presentations, that will also be appreciated. So Cherise, the spotlight is all yours.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I've prepared a very short presentation that gives a synopsis of the band, where we've been and what we hope to do and what we do as well in terms of our commitment to being a green band and being a cost-effective band as well. So I'm about to share the screen now. Why won't it? Okay, great. So just a bit about me. Oh, this is going way too quickly. Oh, sorry about that. Do they see all that stuff up there? Okay, so a bit about me. Similar to what Tyrell just told you, I'm an activist. I'm from Belmont. My advocacy mainly focuses around the LGBTQIA community and gender equality and disability justice. I'm also a seasoned artist and a journalist, which all of those things encompassed all the things that I've brought to the mass fair and what I hope to continue bringing into mass. So our origins as a band started in 2017 when the Bocas Lit Fest announced that they will be having a old mass competition. And I gathered a group of friends that portrayed different traditional mask characters under the theme of hair, creed, and race. Um, all of those costumes definitely came together in just about one night, and many hands kind of pulled together to make a miracle happen and ensure that we had actual costumes for the masqueraders. At that time, we had absolutely no money. Like there was literally $5 in my pocket, and I was refusing to spend said $5. So everything came from stuff that was lying around my house or outside in the yard. And we made those costumes. And I think in the next slide there should be, yeah. So this is the small snippet of what the costumes looked like that year. And as you can see, they're not too elaborate, but our messaging was very strong in terms of what we wanted to say about the different issues that were happening in Trinidad and Tobago in terms of the LGBTQIA issue of not having any rights at all. That was not even during the sphere of the Jason Jones time. This was a little bit before that. And then we were also speaking on the refugee crisis. So in 2018, I had a lot of pressure from Colin Robinson, who was one of my mentors and has now transitioned into Ancestry. And he was like, I really want to play in your band, so you have to bring us out. And I was kind of toying with the idea of not doing it because it really was a lot to pull together the year before. However, it came to pass, and Colin was very eager to play the Jamet, and he can be seen front and center here in his Jamet costume. And he was very much adamant about the Petrotrin issue. So also in that year, that would have been the last year that one of my masqueraders, Varun Beaton, was the last year that he also played with us because he and Colin passed within a couple months of each other. This is just a small snippet of some of the costumes from the year after that. In 2020 to 2022, as you all are aware, the COVID pandemic took over the world, and that definitely put a hold on everything that I wanted to do. So it gave more time to conceptualize and figure out ideas that could be a possibility coming forward. And all of those ideas then kind of got scrapped simply because I ended up with COVID at the end of 2022 when just about nobody had COVID at that time, and I ended up having to be hospitalized, and I ended up with long COVID. So I used that as the running theme when we re-emerged for 2023 Carnival. And that's when we took the band to a different level, and we took it outside of the Bocas Lit Fest realm and said that we wanted to do this on a national level for the NCC competitions. So we had 6 costumes in competition that year. And all of the characters that year in particular had these large whimsical heads. And that's simply because as a child, traditional mask characters really scared me. And I thought that it took way too long for me to want to have this kind of interaction with these traditional mask icons that we learn about from primary school, but we don't really get to have these face-to-face interactions because they are very intimidating and a little scary. So I wanted to have costumes that looked playful and almost cartoon-like so that kids can definitely come up to us and interact and learn about the origins of Carnival, as well as, you know, using different materials to make masks, and that it's not just about bikini and beads or feathers and imports, and that we can make masks from different items that we have just lying around our own homes. So also in 2023, we re-entered the Bocas Lit Fest competition and we added in a bookman, which is our seventh character, also again with a big head. However, the Bocas Lit Fest theme that year played directly on what our vision was in terms of sustainability. So we did add in some theatrical flair. So we had like essentially a skit of seven big-headed characters talking about landslides and deforestation and the effects of the global warming and how it affected us here in the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago. So 2024 came, which is this year, and I did have hopes of adding on maybe one or two more characters. And then we said, okay, let's open it up to the public. And if we get a couple people, great. And I had no idea that we were going to quickly get 15 people, which was way more than I anticipated. And it became a little stressful and daunting because last year 6 was difficult and it was out of my mind as to how we could even produce 15, especially using the sustainability model that we have. And I mean, I live in a very small space, so there's only so much things lying around my home that we can use to make 15 costumes. So we had to definitely reach out and ask for some support on a national level, which definitely helped us out. So this is also some snippets just from this year. So you can see all of these different costumes. All of them are made from just things lying around that people would donate into us. This costume in particular, the second one from the left, is entirely made of cans, as in all of the outfitted part is made from drinking cans that we cut out, and as well as the tabs, and the rest of it is paper mache and some PVC that we've bent to make the backpack itself. All of our wire bending comes from wire hangers. So lots of people throw away wire hangers because they have much weight, but they definitely hold enough weight to hold up some paper mache. So in terms of our sustainability model, in 2023, wanting to make those 6 costumes, I, again, did not have that many things lying around my house to repurpose. So I had an idea to put out this graphic on some of these give and take Facebook groups, as well as on my personal page, asking for wire hangers, newspaper, cardboard, fabric ends, ends of paint, sequins, gems, string, twine, old costumes and stuff like that. And I put that out one night, and the next morning I woke up and my phone was just crazy, and there were so many people just willing to come drop things or ask me to come pick things up, and it became a little daunting after a while to have like a whole storage room just filled with things and not knowing where to even start to sort any of it out. And again, we tried to use a similar model in 2024, which once again gave us so much stuff that is still a little daunting because we have a lot of things left over that we'll definitely be repurposing for next year. What I didn't anticipate running out of was the wire hangers. So this year, the wire hangers really became an integral part of the costume making. And towards the end, I ended up having to go to my own cupboard to get some wire hangers. So community is also a big part of the vision that I have for mass. And I wanted to make sure that it was not this elite type sphere and bring it back to the origins of mass, which was building a community and having protests together. So all of the people who played any kind of hand in getting the band on the road or making the costumes were invited to sign the back of the banner as a way of just saying, you know, you are part of this and that your contributions are definitely noted and you are part of our history and what we are trying to create here as a mini band that's making costumes out of basically trash. So we did learn quite a lesson this year because we have such strong messaging. One of our sponsors decided to pull out on us the night of the competition, and that day was a very emotional roller coaster for me. However, I again so thankful for the community that we have created, built, and strengthened, that everybody kind of had the same idea. And when it was happening, all of the masqueraders just started messaging the group, and they're like, "No, we're not supporting this. We are out. Let's pull out." And it was just a unanimous decision that ran so smoothly. And thankfully, one of our friends who has supported the band from inception, she lives pretty close by to the venue that was supposed to host us, as well as the venue for the competition. So she hosted us that night in her yard, which again, just to stress on how important the community building is for us, that we were able to rely on people who are close to us to support us and give us that space to be able to get ready and just de-stress, because everybody was pretty nervous before they went on stage. This is just some contact information as to how you can get involved with the band or contact me at any point. And the next thing that I will be sharing is a video on one of the creation videos. So that's over. I closed it. Okay, come around and touch this. I need to get the thing back.
Yes, you need to come around.
Sorry about that. I'm trying so hard. I don't know where I am. I got it. Share screen. Share this one. Great. Great. So this is one of our masqueraders who documented her entire costume building process with some narration, as well as the rationale behind what she chose and what she visioned for her portrayal.
Bookmind, my rendition of Bookman from traditional mass, was made entirely by hand and included wire bending for the headpiece and the wings, wire wrapping for safety and comfort while wearing the wire pieces, cutting and gluing of decorations onto the fabric of the gown, stitching the fabric together, papier-mâché, painting, glitter and molding of cardboard for the headpiece and for the book. The bookman holds a book of people who deserve to go to hell, and the bookmind highlighted predators, perpetrators of sexual crimes, and the character held a laptop of lists of names of such predators. Some you may know, some you may not know. I invite you to research any of the names that you do not yet know.
And the other one, that's not it. This one of our photographers who was on the road with us. So one of the photographers who was on the road with us, he created this video that showed us on the road, and these were the finished costumes.
Calling out the people, the ills and the pills. And if a man want to set false standards for you to follow, to he where you say.
No
And if
way.
he persist to brighten your head and lighten your bread, you're living dead, where you say.
No way.
Now you're coming out to play,
Who say?
or uniting right away.
That's insane.
So if a man want to set false standards for you to follow, to he where you say.
No
If
way.
you exist just for drinking corn or bad in your head, you go heavy like lead. The corn men done, mix up the brew to sell it to you and jolly go milk you. And when you check up on yourself,
That's
you're
that.
just ready for the cold shell.
All that
If you
work.
exist just for drinking corn or bad in your head, you go heavy like lead.
That's
And if
right.
man don't care about the woman, and woman she man, what you think they should do?
Great. So that was my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it. I look forward to whatever questions that you guys have, and I'm looking forward to the other presenters. So thank you so much for your time. I hope this was informative and somewhat enjoyable.
Thank you so much, Sharice. It definitely was informative and enjoyable, and I think you touched on so many different points that have become, topic of conversation. Some would argue after every carnival, but particularly on social media, after this carnival, which is the cost of carnival, the accessibility. I think your presentation, you show ways on how it could be made more affordable and accessible. And in that, you sort of intertwine, as we are discussing here this afternoon, sustainability. And something that I picked up on, which I really enjoyed, was how you're also using the mass as a story of sustainability in terms of raising awareness for different environmental issues, as you would have highlighted through your pieces. So thank you so much for that presentation, and I'm sure there will be others who would have made observations during the presentation and have questions during the question and answer segment. So now we are going to move on to Danny McCletchy. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Danny is a Howard University School of Engineering graduate and sustainability professional with proven leadership and entrepreneurial skills. Danny is the co-founder of Cari-Cycle, an organization that consults with Caribbean stakeholders to reduce the environmental impact of Caribbean carnivals and festivals. Her work through Cari-Cycle has been recognized, including a Best Sustainability Business Pitch Award and a Green Biz 2023 30 Under 30 Award. Outside of Cari-Cycle, Dani works with Fortune 500 manufacturing companies to manage sustainable programs. And outside of that, she also volunteers as a sustainable fashion ambassador for Remake and content creator for her church. She is committed to promoting sustainability and environmental awareness in inequitable communities through her faith. So now I will pass you on to Dani.
Thank you, Tyrell. Thank you, Ardeen, who reached out to me, and thank you for the Cropper Foundation. And thank you for everyone who is participating, as well as my fellow panelists. That was a wonderful intro. Let me share my screen right now. Okay. Okay. Let me just put it on full screen. Okay. As Tyrell introduced, my name is Dani McCletchy, and I'm one of the co-founders of Cari-Cycle, an organization made in Trinidad and Tobago, for Trinidad and Tobago, and the rest of the world who participates in Caribbean carnivals. So we're going to start off with introduction. This panel is on sustainable festivals, but specifically we're focused on sustainable carnivals. And I kind of wanted to define what it is. So I kind of defined first what a Caribbean carnival is, which, if we just did it in a very brief way, is an annual cultural celebration that originated in Trinidad and Tobago's in the 1800s. And in modern days, in present times, we know it as still honoring and celebrating our past through traditional mass events, but also we have a lot of fetes now. We have the band of parades and other activities that surround Carnival and make up the 3 month celebration that we have. Sustainability is defined by the UN as meeting the needs of the current generation or the present time without compromising the ability of the future generations being able to meet their own needs. So when you combine both of those definitions, you get a simple definition of what a sustainable carnival is supposed to be. It's supposed to be an annual cultural celebration where all the events that take place within Carnival is celebrated in a way that satisfies what we want presently without compromising the needs of future generations or future children and grandchildren to participate in Carnival. So I hope that makes a little sense. So now, we know what a sustainable carnival should be, but how is today carnival unsustainable? I'm kind of gonna talk about it from two angles. Gonna talk about it from the environmental side as well as the social side. So currently, environmentally, we have waste in various areas of Carnival. You have it during the events, um, just with fetes alone, not considering cultural events like Panorama or the Moku Drumbeat celebration or any of those things. We have about over 300 fetes that take place over the 2 to 3 month carnival period, depending on whether it's a short or long season. And those fetes are of various sizes from small micro fetes, maybe like 200 people, to really large fetes like Stinkin' which goes into the thousands of peoples. And those events produce organic waste through foods, free foods, or paid foods if it's an all-inclusive event. And then plastic waste because during fets we have a lot of vendors, a lot of sponsors come giving you new foods to try or just giveaways like cups, lanyards, all these different branded things that sometimes don't honestly make it home. And where does it end up? It ends up on the floor or in the trash. Then we have Juve waste, where, after we, go down the streets and we come home in our powder and paint, um, there is a lot of textile waste produced from people throwing away shirts, shorts, and sneakers. Now, this predominantly happens with foreigners. I would say because we do Juve recycling and we get most of our Juve waste from hotels where foreigners would stay. But it's still a significant amount of waste. And we also don't collect Juve waste throughout the different Juves that actually happen throughout the year. So there's an opportunity there. And then lastly, our largest focus and our biggest focus is costume waste. And costumes are predominantly made of plastic-based materials, and they're discarded after one single use. So maybe with Juve waste, you may have worn out old t-shirts or old sneakers, and that has been worn out like over and over and over again, and then you wear it to get dirty and then you throw it away. That's one thing. Costumes are brand new and made every year for Carnival, new designs every year, but you can't reuse them the way it's intended to for each carnival because of that culture. And after a single use, maybe not even 24 hours, maybe 8 hours, you put it on Carnival Tuesday, and then by Carnival Tuesday night, you should throw it away. That is the problem with costume waste. We've taken steps to kind of quantify the estimated emission just a carnival bra produced, and that is about 37 kilograms of carbon emissions. Um, if you just multiply that by a fraction of like the 10,000 plus revelers that play, there's a lot of waste that's produced, and I believe if I'm going off the top of my head, just like 25% of bras thrown away could equate to over the power it would take to power over 140 homes. So that is just a fraction, and that's not the underwear, that's not the arm pieces, that's not all the other waste that contributes to costume waste. So we see the environmental problem. Then there is the social problem. So while Carnival has so much benefits economically, with the incoming tourists, a lot of people make their money for the year. Hairdressers, food vendors, other artisans, people who actually are in the industry who are actually selling Monday wear and stuff. It's a great time. There's a big economic benefit and boost to having Carnival on the island. But the downside to having Carnival being commercialized is that now it's an event that is now being outpriced for the local residents. So Carnival was made by us for us, but now we're being outpriced out of certain Carnival events due to its commercialization. And local banks have identified that because there's a plethora of Carnival loans available for people to participate. And they're very quick with it. So one Carnival is done, you're paying off your loan. Next year, Carnival comes, a new loan is ready for you. And it's easier to get a Carnival loan than it is to get an auto loan or any other loan because why? They want to profit off of the commercialization of Carnival. It's sad to say, and I'm not trying to put down any bank, but this is the situation that we're in. Additionally, just through our work with designers, jewelry makers, artisans, the material that are typically used in carnival costume creations, like the feathers and the gems and those things, are all imported. And with it being imported, that means it's all expensive. So you can go to, let's just say, one of the biggest carnival stores on the island, Samaru's, and a feather could cost you around 40 to 80 TT for one feather. That is a lot. And if you're a designer trying to break in the industry, this is your passion to like create just a design or a prototype. Unless you're affiliated with, a large group that can maybe fund you or provide that capital for you, it's really hard for new people to break in the industry because of the very expensive overhead cost. So socially, we have issues there. And Carnicycle comes in to fix those issues. So Carnicycle was formed in November 2018 by myself and Luke Harris. And our mission is simply to make Carnival sustainable in all the areas I just discussed. We're committed to advancing environmental sustainability and social sustainability and fostering real community through our different initiatives. In addition to Luke and I, there's also Malou. She's based in Barbados and she has a track record of being involved in Caribbean volunteer programs and helping different social enterprises around the Caribbean develop their sustainable messaging and marketing. Then we have Denise Carew, who is our eco fashion advisor. She's from Trinidad and Tobago, but based in Toronto. And she's in a master's program for sustainable fashion, but she also has her own business that uses recycled clothing to make wearable clothing and new forms of clothing via art. So like she paints on the clothes and makes very custom, unique pieces that are one of a kind and resells them, whereas the textiles that she are using would have been thrown away. And then we have Matthew Desant, who is kind of a veteran in the industry, and he has been kind of our insider into how events run. He's worked with developing and marketing big events like Kes Tuesday and a bunch of different big events around the island. And together we make up the team. So yeah, with making Carnival sustainable, we hope to bridge the gap between Caribbean culture and sustainability, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but anywhere that there's a carnival, because there's over 150 carnivals, Caribbean type carnivals that are celebrated across the globe at this point. Um, so, I told you what we're for, but what do we do? What are our initiatives that, help us achieve our mission? So, our largest initiative is costume recycling. And, as of last year, when Carnival returned back to Trinidad and Tobago, that was our biggest year. We were able to recycle over 300 backpacks, while working with our partners. So we work with various partners like hotels. Hyatt has been a true partner with us year after year, but we also worked with Briggs and Hilton last year, as well as different villas as well. We're part of the small accommodations owners of Trinidad and Tobago. And so we had them promote to their villa guests that costume recycling was also available through them. And then we also we worked with Hello Green and a couple other places to host costume recycling bins. Then we have our partnership with Tribe Carnival, who will have dead stock costume that they would have accumulated over the years, and we would have recycled a lot of costume waste through them as well. And you can see that, with just 2,300 costume recycle last year, that is just a huge impact because all those 2,300 costumes would have gone in the landfill, being not used. And they are being used. So here are examples below of how they're being used. So we've been able to sell costumes to upcoming designers in St. Lucia, again, where barrier for entry was a cost. So with our secondhand material being so cheap, they were able to purchase from us. And we create a whole section using some recycled material. As you see, like the neck piece, the waistband, and arm piece were all like costume materials recreated from the recycled material we had. A unique industry that comes to us for material is the burlesque industry, which when we started Carnicycle, we had no idea that this would be a thing for us. Having partnerships, connections, and catering to the burlesque market. And it makes sense because, a lot of their costumes and material are similar, exactly the same kind of to the ones used in carnivals. Samba dancers and stuff also utilize our recycled material. And then again, the last one is Tobago Carnival that happened last year. We had a new designer also come and, use our material to create a prototype for a design for a section. So she didn't use it for the whole section like the St. Lucia band, but she used it for prototyping purposes. Um, and we just love the outcome of all of these. Um, Next. Oops. I think I skipped a section. Oh, okay. Yeah, and just to go back, I kind of talked through it, but our process of costume recycling again is working with partners throughout the island to host collection. And then after we collect the material, we'll sort, clean, and deconstruct. This is our way of kind of helping boost the economy because we actually pay people to do that. And then we'll make an inventory of the stock we would get for each carnival, and then we proceed to either donate it. We donate specifically to schools, dance groups, and theater groups. And then for other people, we'll sell them at a discounted price so we can do a lot of the free work that we do and continue our operations. Something new that we launched this year that also speaks to our innovation is backpack rental. So, we noticed, as you see in the picture above, and the 300 backpacks we recycled last year, that a lot of people throw away their backpacks. Backpacks sometimes don't even make it to the end of the day because we recycled a lot at lunch parks last year. So people are just really purchasing these expensive accessories to their costumes to wear for pictures. And we realized that, practically wearing a backpack all day in the hot sun is not practical. They're heavy. And at some point on the road, you just want to be free and enjoy the moment without having to look cute. And so our solution for that is taking inspiration from clothing rental companies that are big all over the world in the US, India, Canada, where people actually go on websites and they rent clothing for specific events. It could be for a vacation, it could be for a special event, but they use these clothing rental platforms because it's affordable. they're also not buying something they know they're going to just use once and it can be returned. So those clothing can be washed and reused for a longer time. And, we've just applied that same concept to backpacks, knowing that people just want to wear them for the pictures. We offered a solution where people could just rent the backpacks for pictures and be able to return it back. So every year we could, or after every carnival, we can redesign the backpacks and the materials can be used much longer because they're in good condition, and they could use so many more times versus maybe one or two times. And we had a lot of great feedback this year, and it's something that we plan to continue. But this is just one of the innovations that we've developed this year. Additionally, for the first time this year as well, or starting last year, we had our first Monday work consulting experience. So we worked with an emerging Monday wear designer for her first Monday wear collection. And she really wanted to start off in a way that was green, and sustainable, and we helped her achieve those goals. So we worked with her, we analyzed her design that she sketched out and the material that she had already sourced that she was going to use. And what we did was we found alternative fabrics that were sustainable. And by sustainable fabrics, they were either organic fabrics like organic cotton, organic burlap, or they were dead stock fabric. So fabric that was produced in excess and that was going to be thrown away if not sold. And so we're able to match up exactly her colors, her patterns, the texture of the fabrics, all in sustainable ones. And she picked the fabrics um, that were actually, most of them were even at a better price point than what she was purchasing. And so she was also able to save money and use a more sustainable fabric. And the costume in the pink on the right specifically was one of those fabrics that were used. And so we were really excited that not only that, we made the suggestions, but the underwear designer actually took our suggestion and incorporated it into her design. Additionally, we helped her kind of think about where she wants her business to be in, 3 to 5 years. And we realized that sustainability is an incremental thing. So not everything can happen at once. So we helped her formulate, short-term and long-term goals and steps she could take to be where she wants to be, not all at once, but like year by year. So, we hope to work with her again next year and expand on what we've already did this year. And then lastly, all of this can't be done if people don't even know that we exist. So we do take measures and engage throughout the year to promote education and awareness. So we do this through working with schools, and we'll go in schools like International School, Port of Spain, or we had a school visit where we have costume recycling done in Tobago. That's where we're from and based. And we were able to show them how, we recycle the costumes and teach them about why it's important to be able to reuse materials. And then we also have a partnership with Spool Garment Factory, which is a local nonprofit initiative that helps underprivileged women learn how to sew and design and manufacture carnival costumes locally. And in with those cohorts, we would always start out the cohort with teaching these women how to break down the costumes and clean them, well, not clean them, just break down the costumes and be able to do it in a way that preserves the materials. And on your right hand you would see like a backpack that was designed with the feathers that someone broke down and then made a backpack of. Additionally, the bodysuit actually was made out of recycled textiles as well from backpacks and the gems. So that whole costume was made out of recycled material from the workshops we did. So exciting. So kind of to close this off, call to action. How can you get involved? What are we going to do moving forward? Well, here are the 2024 goals, and we're open to sharing this with the world because, again, we've gotten this far through partnerships, through collaborations to support. So we're sharing our goals openly with you. We want to establish the world's first micro recycling center for costumes. And we want to utilize this by doing a crowdfunding campaign. So we want to create an official costume recycling center where we can recycle not only costumes that we get from Trinidad and Tobago, but again, we go to different islands throughout the year to do our costume recycling campaigns. So we could bring back material there. We also donate material on each island that we do those campaigns in. But just like a plastic bottle recycling factory or a cardboard recycling factory, we want to have a costume recycling factory, and we're determined to get it this year. And then we want to continue the education and research we do, because we think it's important that people are constantly aware of new developments that are happening in the sustainable carnival space, or what is or just continuing to reach out to people, because the more people know, the more action will be taken. Um, and this year we also, it wasn't in one of those previous slides, we had our first carnival thrift market, which was really good. People came and they bought um secondhand footwear, as well as dead stock costumes, and we want to make that more popular. There are fetes throughout the whole year, so it's not fetes aren't just exclusive to Carnival. So we want to have the markets be available where people can, swap or purchase secondhand like footwear or material to create costumes or whatever arts and crafts project that they want to create. Um, and then yeah, again, partnerships I think are the backbone to Carnicycle. So if you guys are interested in partnering with us, we're very, very open to having a discussion and working with you. So we're here to help you. If you're a Monday wear brand or a mass brand and you need to be more sustainable or you need a strategy, or if you need your emissions to be um, quantified, we can help you do that. And you can help us by promoting our cause to your customers or your group of people, your circle that you know. You could participate as a donation location if you have an establishment for next carnival. And then you could just follow us and stay updated on all things pertaining to carnival and sustainability. And just thank you so much. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for that very interesting presentation, and a gentle reminder to everyone here today that after the webinar, we will send out an email with contact information if you'd like to get in touch with Danny or Sharice or Elise, who is our next presenter. So just a few notes that I made, and I'm sure other people would have made notes as well, just approaching sustainability from different aspects. And I love the recurring theme of also the financial sustainability of Carnival and so on. I would have loved to see the second-hand feather sales that you all do, the sustainable design consultancy. I think that's very good, very innovative. And again, just like Sharice, using the mass as well to raise awareness and educate, because we know storytelling is a part of the traditional carnival art. So yeah, I love to see that, that's also being incorporated into the effort. So moving swiftly along to our next presenter, Ms. Elise Rostand. Elise Rostand is the Managing Director of the Walkers Institute for Regenerative Research, Education and Design, and also leads program management for Walkers Reserve and its ecosystem of companies. In this role, Elise works with a team of experts in stewarding the largest regeneration project in the Caribbean, where 277 acres of mined lands in Barbados are being transformed into a nature reserve and living laboratory for climate resilience. As a creative professional with a background in design management and arts administration, well, design and management and arts administration, Elise has delved more deeply into sustainable development initiatives in the Caribbean as the festival director of New Fire Festival, integrating ecotourism, the arts, and regenerative environmental practices as a means of achieving positive cultural transformation. So I'm going to pass it over to Danny, who also has a little video for us to look at before the presentation begins.
Thank you so much, Tyrell. So, Alyssa, if you wouldn't mind just sharing the video, and then I'll jump into my presentation. Thank you.
1 point, pretty much 99% or more of the indigenous forest in Barbados got cut down. Pretty much the rest of Barbados, even down to the gullies, were cleared at 1 point to plant sugarcane. All life forms on this planet are really designed to take the planet forward. But we as humans, looking after our family and following our social constructs, we seem to be taking the planet backwards. The project that we're doing here at Walkers is about regenerating a site that's been completely devastated by quarrying. And the quarrying was important because it supplied pretty much all of Barbados with the sand that everyone's building their houses with.
It is impressive how it went from being a sand quarry to now being this amazing place where you can both find the culture of Barbados, but also many different strategies for resiliency. It is important also to understand that when we talk about climate resiliency, we're also talking about food sovereignty.
By nurturing biodiversity and increasing habitat, we can fix things in these degraded conditions. If we can grow food here, we can grow food anywhere in the Caribbean. We need to get inspired and we need to get involved. Our very existence is at stake.
All right, thank you, Alyssa. And I was seeing some comments in the chat that people weren't able to hear the audio or the volume was low. So as Tyrell mentioned, when the email is sent out, Tyrell, I'll just ask if you could send a link to the video on YouTube so that people have an opportunity to take a look at the video again. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Tyrell. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be participating in today's webinar and really feeling honored to share some insight into my work with New Fire Festival and then my current role in Barbados now with Wired and Walkers Reserve as we take a regenerative look at really coming to terms with our realities in a small island developing states and what that means for culture, for our environments, and the way that we gather when it comes to festivals and events. So I will just share my screen so I can go through my presentation. I can find it. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see the full screen there. So just going through a bit about my background. So, I grew up in a very creative household. So I've had the opportunity to work on creative projects, I guess ever since I was born, but officially it's been over 20 years now doing things through academic institutions and then in my professional life, which has run the gamut from fashion design to retail management in the States and Canada, and then coming back to Trinidad in 2010. Starting work with the Ministry of Culture through the Division of Culture at that time, and then eventually starting with, a team of fantastic people to create New Fire Festival that has then led into my work with Wired currently. So, we get a question a lot about why festivals are the catalyst for transformation. And very simply, festivals as a vehicle allow people to come together. You're connecting people in spaces and places to have experiences that persons probably wouldn't have in their everyday lives. So there's a lot of talk around, over the last 2 decades, that idea of festival tourism and experiential tourism, why people are moving from place to place, what people are interested in experiencing, and how those experiences can be transformational. So the idea of the carrying capacity of a space to host an event on a large scale is something that definitely needs consideration. What's the impact that these activities have on the physical environment, but also how are we looking at them as economic drivers and then social development vehicles as that three-pronged approach of people, planet, and prosperity, as we like to see. All right, so in people connecting through festivals, there's an opportunity to guide participants through transformational experiences, to lasting changes in behavior, and potentially cultural transformation in the long term. So this is the ethos that we would have used when we were looking at New Fire Festival. How did we make going zero waste and leaving no trace and having that integrated into community outreach and development, developing spaces for cultural and creative products? How did all of that come together in a way that was attractive to the everyday person? And then beyond the festival, what that meant for, continued social development and community building. So one of the things that has been very integral in my current work is looking at how we view sustainability and the idea of wanting to move from a sustainable paradigm to a regenerative one. So I just looked at, what those words mean, the sustainable aspect Dani would have touched on in her presentation. Something that can be sustained over time is doing little harm now, and then we're also thinking about it not harming future generations. But in the work that we do at Walker's Reserve, you would have seen that, we are a sand quarry being transformed into a nature reserve. The actual act of transformation has to be regenerative, where you're looking at what currently exists, but then you're adding back into the environment, building habitats, increasing biodiversity, creating, ecosystems that then feed into the whole in terms of those circular systems and therefore circular economies. So like this says, we're thinking not just keeping the status quo, but how are you adding benefits to the system and how are you in fact renewing the system? So the lens that I want to take is looking at that regenerative approach instead of just looking at things being sustainable. And just a graphic here to explain that further, where you're looking at that movement from one paradigm to another, where it's conventional thinking to a regenerative approach to the way that we operate. So the question is, can festivals be regenerative? So in the work that we would have done with New Fire Festival, the work that I did with my team in the culture division, and then the programming that we have now at Walker's Reserve, we're looking at several elements that need to be considered. So the ecology of a space, I spoke about carrying capacity earlier, what it means for people actually traveling to the space. So, there's a whole talk, a lot of discussion around mindful travel. So encouraging people to give back to a space where they travel. So there's a tree planting program we have at Walker's Reserve. There's give back to the community that can happen in terms of people sponsoring students to come and take tours and have educational, experiences. And I think this is something that a lot more people, festival participants, travelers, tourists want to feel like they are making the world a better place while still having fun and having interesting experiences. That in itself is transformational and another way of looking at travel in general, and then hosting of large-scale activities in particular. So looking at the way that resources are managed to implement these large-scale activities, you're talking about water, power, waste management, all of those things were things we pioneered through New Fire Festival. And it's been very, very fulfilling to see that a lot of members of our team, who were already involved in many other valuable and fantastic projects and initiatives, would have been able to stretch their legs, so to speak, in exploring how some of these, approaches could be more regenerative, and then being able to apply that further into the work that they were doing as individuals and in their own spheres of activity. So we've seen a lot of things, basics like bring your own cup to an event, take hold. The idea of what zero waste means when we're hosting these large scale activities, and not just during the activity, but what does it mean during the planning, before, after, etc. So that thought process of taking that quote unquote green lens in implementing these large scale activities, we definitely saw a shift throughout the time that we were doing the festival in the way that other things were happening, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but across the region as well. Another thing that, and I think Danny would have touched on this, and maybe Sharice as well, in terms of the amount of items that are printed through sponsors and just generally, a lot of it is just not necessary, but it's the way that we have come to promote, the events that we do. And it really is taking a hard look at whether these things are necessary and how we can use digital assets, for example, to get the point across in our messaging, in the promotion of the event, during the event, and then with the content that's created post-event. There's another consideration in terms of how you guide people through experiences. So whether it be signage, whether it be your ambassadors on the ground who are, greeting guests and kind of explaining where to go and what to see and what to do. There are a lot of innovative and creative approaches that can be used as alternatives to some of the more traditional and more wasteful ways that events and festivals have been done in the past. So that idea of cultural transformation is something that personally has really been a core belief and value in my own life, and something that I've applied to all the work that I've done over my career. And that belief that bringing people together and festivals being that vehicle can really be a catalyst for transformation, something that inspires people to think and act differently. Because the only way that you change culture is that you start seeding, different ideas in the minds of people. And once those ideas take hold, does that then change behavior, which informs habits, which eventually we would, see as changing culture to a certain extent. So, the connections, the relationships, the content that's generated, the metrics that's documented, that can then be used to really provide data to policymakers, for example. All of these things have been used and can be used to establish changes across all sectors. So, both Sharice and Danny spoke about community. And when we talk about community, it's the people who are living in, the local spaces where activities and events are held, but it's also that larger audience, that larger community of people who are visiting your website, who are following you on Instagram, who are making donations, who are spreading the word. Like, how are we working with organizations in the public, in the private sector, departments of ministries and various, governmental agencies in the public sector, fellow NGOs, individuals in the civil sectors and service organizations like the Rotary clubs, etc. How are we bringing all these various stakeholders together in a way where ideas can be shared and strategies can really be developed for pushing things forward, really implementing true change and true development in our various spaces. And for us at New Fire Festival, and based on the programming that we do at Walkers Reserve, we really have that idea of bringing people together as core, that community building, community development as central to the work that we do and the successful impact of that work. So this was a question that I thought was interesting because we are talking about, having festivals be sustainable, and in my mind, they need to be regenerative as well. But what happens after the festival? Because a festival is an event where you're bringing people together temporarily. Maybe it might happen once a year, in some cases once every 2 years. The frequency may change, but I think it's important to have a space and a place, whether it's digital or physical, for people to come back and connect to, and for that community to continue being able to share. because that's where the real change happens, where people feel seen and heard, and where the connections are vibrant, and the connections are seen as valuable. So through the meaningful interaction of people across sectors, ideas are shared, strategies can be developed, and true change can be realized. In what we're doing at Walker's Reserve, that idea of really holding space for people to connect with themselves, to connect with each other, and to reconnect with the environment, with Mother Nature, is really core to our principles of regeneration. Because if people don't care about the environment, if they don't care about each other, if we don't care about our own well-being, then what is the point of all this work? And having a space, a physical space, and digital spaces that augment and complement those physical spaces, I truly believe is important for people to be able to come back regularly and ground themselves, seed and nurture those relationships and those connections, and then take that energy into their various spheres of life. And we've seen a lot of positive benefits coming out of, having programming that allows people to come in, not being prescriptive, but having an outline around, how people interact, but just letting people connect in their own ways and seeing what comes out of that. It's been very magical and beautiful. So this is my contact information. As Tyrell said, he'll be sharing that by email as well. But I wanted to keep this very short because I know that we have the Q&A. So I'm interested to hear if people have any questions and looking forward to sharing additionally.
Thank you so much for that. Again, another informative presentation. Some takeaways for me was, of course, the importance of acknowledging these spaces that we are in when we are planning, the festival and events that could help us be more mindful of our interactions and coexisting with the natural environment. Festivals are spaces for people to connect, to learn, to share knowledge. And Caribbean culture has always been very social, and these social activities has always had importance in our society. So again, another informative presentation. So now I'm going to open up the floor to our attendees to ask questions. As always, for those who would have been here before, we always just ask you to keep, your contributions. Sorry, I'm very respectful and be mindful that it's a conversation and a discussion that we're having. Sometimes we feel very passionate about some of the topics, but we want to keep it a respectful space. So I'm sure Sharice, Eliza, and Danny, right. You already have a question. Feel free to, unmute and ask. Yes, Joseph, you could feel free to unmute and ask.
Yes, I am Joseph Antoine from Grenada. I learned about this session incidentally or accidentally. And because this has been culture overall, and then the impact of festivals on the environment over the years have been a concern for me, being the founder of Friends of the Earth Grenada. In fact, one of the articles in our manifesto, which we normally put out just before general election, over the years has been asking the authorities to hold or require an audit of institutions and festivals, whether it's Christmas, Carnival, or that kind of stuff. So it's very interested that you're holding that kind of activity. In fact, just this morning, I was speaking to the person who is the Consul General of Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago. I normally get him involved in international webinars and so on, talking about Calypso, since he has been one of the East Calypsonians from Grenada. And the issue of sustainability is one of the things that I agonize on, whether it's in the form of the Calypsos, in the form of the Calypso tents and so on, which seems to be becoming an extinct aspect in places like Grenada. I'm very happy to be on this activity, and I want to commend those who have organized it. But I want to find out whether it would be possible to extend that even further, rather than not just for people in Trinidad, but for us to have a broader conversation through the Caribbean. I am part of a movement of people of Afro descent in the Americas, Brazil, Ecuador, and so on. I'm the kind of Caribbean link also on that link. So, and they want to, especially the people of Brazil and Ecuador, they want to forge more direct contact, cultural and tourism contact with the people of the Caribbean. So I'm very happy and would hope that I could engage with some of the speakers later on in maybe having conversation on Grenada side. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that contribution, Mr. Antoine. Of course, we have a contact. We will always reach out, and I'm not sure if any of our presenters want to add anything to what Mr. Antoine would have said.
Yeah, well, what I want to say, Tyrell, is that, we talked about people being part of different teams, communities, not just being local or national. And I think as Caribbean people, there is a lot that Barbados, I mean, living there now, I've seen firsthand what the PN has been able to do in terms of highlighting and amplifying, the effect of climate change on our region, on our small islands, and what we need to do in terms of coming together as a region to really address a lot of this. So, I think the work that we're doing in all our various spheres, a lot of it has the potential to be replicated and to be applied across our various spaces, our various islands in the region. So I think, the conversations across islands need to continue. We need to be looking at that community of the Caribbean as our first port of call and understanding how we're coming up with solutions that work for all of us and not just for one of us.
Definitely. I think that's an important point because we hear it in many different situations, but especially in the environmental field that it's not uh, change is not something that one person alone could drive. It's always a team effort, and especially being a part of the region like the Caribbean that has many different vulnerabilities. I think together, we are always stronger than being apart. If that may sound a little cheesy, but it is something that's definitely important in terms of the way that we approach environmental issues and we speak about solutions and actions. While Danny was presenting, yes, I believe it was Danny. Miss Noel would have had a question in chat, so I'm gonna just raise it now for Danny. I think she wanted to know if you all at Cari-Cycle move material from one island to another to facilitate stock.
Yes, that's correct. So we would have done different costume recycling campaigns. And what we would do is we do the same process at each island. So we'll work with maybe the local environmental organization, like Jamaica. We work with Nadati of Jamaica. They're an environmental organization, and then we would collaborate with Marriott in Jamaica and the Jamaica Pegasus hotels to have and UE to have costume recycling locations, collect the costumes. Then we would break them apart there, and then we would donate to some. So we donated material to a wire bending community there. I'm not community company in Jamaica, and then we would fly back the rest to Trinidad and Tobago. So we just do that and repeat that at each island.
I was muted. Sorry, there's another question for you in the chat here from Miss Barbara. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. Apologies if I didn't. And she would have asked for Danny. I like to do cosplays for convention. Is it that you also offer second-hand materials to purchase?
Yes, definitely. I mean, so The material that we have are fabric, essentially, spandex fabric from the costumes. We also have gems and other adornments and beads, which you can use as is, or I know cosplay people, cosplay is actually one of the communities that use secondhand stuff a lot. So thanks for asking this. But you could like spray paint it to, the color that you want. And then we also have significant wire waste from the backpacks that we would strip. So if you need like wire for whatever frames or wings or whatever you want to create, we have that as well. And then of course we have like various feather waste. Um and a lot of bands now are incorporating alternative material because again feathers are very expensive, so we find ourselves having just random plastic waste that they will cut out in the shape of feathers or just use on the costumes as well that you could probably use.
All right, great. So I think, well, of course, we will be sharing everyone's contact information, but if it may be beneficial as well, I guess you could just put it in the chat as well, just so that you can have it. I see we have two hands, so I saw Miss Nicole's hand was up first, so you could feel free, and then Nadia, Miss Nadia.
Hi, thank you to the presenters and thank you all for organizing. I think it's really cool and the initiatives sound amazing. I was really curious in terms of Carnicycle how funding is approached, because you mentioned donations, like you also donate to smaller places or communities, I guess. And I guess funding would work when you work with bigger companies, like bigger carnival troops, that they would pay you to pick up stuff. I'm just very interested in general in how these initiatives can be sustainable financially in a Caribbean context, because it's not like there's a lot of government funding, I think, for projects. To my knowledge, maybe there is, but I don't know.
That is an excellent question. Thanks for asking. So we are self-funded. So we started self-funding, but we would have participated in various accelerators and applied for different grants. The biggest grant that we won was last year, and it was still quite small, but any money is money that we took. So we won the Best Sustainability Pitch Award for Micro Pitch last year. And we were able to get funding through that. Also, when we first started, we did kind of like a softer crowdfunding campaign, not as official as Kickstarter, but just with our family and friends, we would have asked like, hey, we wanted to develop this organization, and specifically our business model is a social enterprise. So our business model is to generate money while doing good, which is why we're able to, still give away things while but still also sell things at the same time. That is the model of a social enterprise, which is unique because it's not quite for profit, not quite nonprofit, but just right in between. Um, and then operationally, we sustain ourselves through costume sales, and then trying to create new products. The consulting was paid. Fly rental, backpack rental was also a new product that we created, and that was paid. Um, so yeah, it's a balance. With the business, we're essentially running it as a business where our goal is to be profitable, but still be able to support different spaces and projects where they can't afford it. Like we want to support the arts, so we'll donate to theater groups. We want to support Caribbean UEval and people who want to wear costumes for you and stuff. So we'll support that. But yeah, that's kind of our business model.
Great. So I believe Ms. Nadia had a question, and then there's a question in the chat which we will go to afterwards.
Greetings, everyone. Nadia Rudder from Ideas Eye Foundation. I'm really happy to hear a lot of everything that was shared today. And so I just want to say generally, Well done to all the presenters and their work and their efforts in incorporating sustainability into culture. Happy to hear from Elise. I missed you on the ground. I didn't realize you were in Barbados. Right. So my question really is to Cari-Cycle, Danny, right? I noted that, you mentioned how many costumes you were able to recover on the ground in Trinidad. And so I was wondering if you all have a capacity for scaling up in terms of the collection of volumes, if you envision being able to manage increased volumes if that was possible, right? So because I note that you have a lot of good ideas for education, and it's very creative. I love all that you're doing. But I was just wondering in terms of the capacity for scaling, what do you all envision?
Thank you for your question. That's a very nice question. That's kind of where our costume recycling facility comes in. Um, yes, we have a lot of material. It is being sold, so we are having material come in and go out. In order to facilitate more donations, we would definitely need a bigger area and full-time staff. At this point, we hire seasonal staff to kind of sort and recycle the material. But we would have to have kind of full-time staff sorting, recycling, and having like a sales team to push out the product. Um, One thing that also I would say hinders us from selling more is not having, we're based in Tobago. So to be able to facilitate like more of our business, we definitely think that that micro facility would have to be based in Trinidad. A lot of people who are in the arts and crafts space like to touch and feel. So having a space people come to actually see the stuff, versus just sending things digitally, I think will really help us. Um, as well as partnering with larger institutions. So we all know who cleans up the road after Carnival. That's already in place every year. So partnering with CPEP, for instance, would help us um be able to get more costumes at a larger scale because they already have workers on the ground. So just imagine CPEP already collects everything. Everything goes to the trash right now, besides glass bottles, I believe. But if plastic bottles could be separated, if costume waste could be separated from that trash, and be diverted to our recycling facility, like the glass bottles are diverted to the glass recycling facilities, that would allow us to scale and expand just alone in Trinidad and Tobago.
Nice. So there is a great question in
Yeah.
chat here by Shandal, and I think it'll be great for Sharice to get an opportunity to answer this, as she would have touched on this during her presentation. Shandal would have asked, in the Caribbean context, carnival and festivals are of the let them have cake paradigm, right? So big distraction, not my opinion, just this is the question, from the greater social issues. How can learning and cultural change happen when most masqueraders just want distraction and don't want to be reminded of the climate crisis and sustainability issues? So, Cherise?
So I think that's a really great question, actually. And most of our, not actually, not most, all of our masqueraders, one, have a deep understanding of, social occurrences and world events that are happening. So they already come with this idea of what they would like their messaging to be, as well as part of our, well, the band or the theme of the band or the morals and values of the band is to a big commitment to sustainability. So for us, that is part of what we promote, and we only accept masqueraders who have that kind of understanding that, one, we are a traditional mass band that focuses on protest mass. So you have to have an idea of what you want your messaging to be and what kind of protest you wish to engage in, as well as there's a commitment from all our masqueraders and costume builders that the materials to make the costumes come from within the band out of the items that have been donated. And of course, there are some aspects like the adhesives, etc., that is very difficult for us to, repurpose. And those are the main points of things that we tend to purchase. Like paint and stuff like that usually comes from people who have already just done like Christmas decorating and repainting of their home. So they give us empty paints and then we kind of do our own color theory to match colors. And in terms of creativity, in our registration form, once you sign up for the band, we ask what is your level of creativity and if it involves, or if your life's history has involved any kind of costume making or cosplay, because all of those types of elements are beneficial to getting the mask done quicker and being able to have less human resource spread thin. Let me know if there's anything that I missed from the question itself.
Nice. So if there are any other questions, you could feel free to ask, because there is a question by Ronaldo in the chat, and I think it'll be a nice way to close off the discussion this afternoon. So I think Joseph has a question, and after that we could get to Ronaldo's question and close off the session. Yes, Mr. Anton, you could go ahead.
Yeah, in terms of the effect of capital on the festival, one of the speakers had mentioned, or more than one, of how we invented those festivals, but it's been taken over or been overshadowed by other forces. How can we ensure that the festival, whether it's the carnival or the food festivals that we have, the Reggae Fest, remains something that belonging to the people rather than money interests? So this is something I'm very concerned about when we talk about sustainability. I mean, the idea of efficiency comes in by those who are the money people, so that the other aspect that makes community a sideline is like when we take products and can it, we take out some of the the most important ingredients so that chemicals could be put into the product to keep it. It's similarly, and we saw that with World Cup 2007 when certain aspect of Caribbean people's involvement was restricted. What can we do to ensure that as much as possible, while one needs money, that money doesn't play the most important role in our festival? I hope my question is clear, and any of you could answer. And by the way, I would like to get in touch with Shirish in particular.
Okay, sure thing. Well, I will pass your contact information along to her that you would have placed in the chat. So anyone wants to answer Mr. Joseph's question before we wrap up?
One thing I would say is that, when we talk about sustainability and then the regenerative approach to just everything, the financial aspect of things need to be considered, but it's the approach that we're taking to that. So there's a lot of work being done now from the environmental side, looking at the value that we're ascribing to living things and how, that value can then be leveraged when it comes to conservation work, regenerative work, so you may not have money in a bank account, but you are able to say, I have X number of acres with X number of trees on it, and that allows you to access certain opportunities. I think the same could be looked at when it comes to cultural capital. We've been talking about orange economies forever. So how are we looking at that, the value that is being ascribed to our traditional knowledge, to the skills that people have, and whether that again can be leveraged from a trade point of view, or from okay, we need to be able to do this to conserve this particular artistic practice, or to be able to take certain things forward. So I think it really is looking at innovative approaches to financing and to financial management, but there will always be an aspect of having to have those types of resources to move activities forward. It's whether, we're looking at how that is balanced with the ecological impact and, of course, the social impact as well.
All right, great. Thanks so much. So I think this is a great closing point. I'll just give each presenter just a brief minute just to answer the question and we could close off afterwards. Ronaldo, who I assume is a creative based on his comments, said, as creatives, we have the ability to make change enjoyable. And you guys, the presenters, are doing an amazing job at that. From using costume presentations with powerful messages to recycling pieces to taking care of Mother Earth. For that, he thanks each of you. It is very inspiring. Jeremy would like to ask what inspires you to keep going and fighting. So we will start with Charisse, then Danny, and then Elise.
So, what inspires me most and has been a continuous inspiration, especially over the last year to especially the last couple of weeks, was the extreme community engagement that we have had, and just members of the public, noticing the work and saying, hey, we see what you're doing and we appreciate this new approach of using sustainable materials that would otherwise be thrown out, and as well as the overwhelming response from our call for donations. So all of those things together have been a great inspiration, and it really lights up fire under me to keep things going, especially in those extremely frustrating hours like 2-3 a.m. It's definitely helpful. Yeah.
Nice. Donnie?
That was a great answer, Sharice. For me, it's actually the creatives that we work with, and the more philanthropy side. So, it's so amazing when we can help a designer like achieve their goal or like create something, out of something that people would have just thrown away. And every single time that it happens, I'm like, there's a purpose for these materials and there's a purpose for what we're doing. And every time someone reaches out saying, hey, we really want, to do this rehearsal or recital, but we just couldn't, get the materials and we're able to give it to them, I'm like, there's a purpose for what we're doing. And, that keeps happening over and over. And it really reignites my passion every single time, even webinars like these and sharing and, getting asked questions and learning what people think about it makes me want to work harder, innovate more, and try harder to make this like a household thing. So I hope that answers your question.
Nice. And last but certainly not least, Elise?
So, and responding to Ronaldo, telling him, just underscoring what Sheree said, that idea of community, when you feel like you have no more energy to keep going, it's the people that you surround yourself with that really like lift you up and help you move forward. I also think for me, that deep sense of responsibility of wanting to make a positive impact for my region, in my region as a Caribbean person, is definitely something that drives me. And I think that, seeing what potential there is, even in the face of the challenges that we're now facing, nobody's coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. And I think that has always been something that has been part of my operating system as a person and as a professional. I will say though that, this work is hard work. And, there's a lot of instances where people burn themselves out. So, as I get older, I am looking more at regeneration on a personal level and what that means to being able to continue to do the work that is just so critical at this time. So balancing, rest and recharging with, getting things done is something that has become more of a primary concern in my life.
Nice. So on behalf of the Cropper Foundation, I would like to thank everyone for taking the time out of their day for joining us this afternoon. I would like to thank my colleagues, Alyssa, Soraya, Kyle, Oman, Adine. It's always a group effort, these webinars. Thank you very much for the role you played and the assistance that you would have given to making it possible. Please look out in your email for the resources from today's webinar, and also look out for an email on our next webinar as part of the Climate Breakdown series, which will be looking at COP28 and some of the activities that have been occurring since that conference in December. So do enjoy the rest of your day and keep well, everyone. Bye.
Thank you, Tara.
Bye.